Kingdom Hall.
Hi. I was on the JW broadcast
Yes.
yesterday, and I was watching. It was the November 2017 broadcast, and
Yes.
at the end of that broadcast, he mentioned something um, about where you have a policy where you have to have like two witnesses for a crime that's been committed. Like if somebody comes to you and tells the elder, are you an elder?
No, I'm not. I'm just an attendant, and we're in the middle of our meeting right now.
Well, no, like this is kind of important. So, he said that you all have like a two witness rule where, if somebody comes to you and alleges that somebody had hurt them or abused them in any way, that there has to be two witnesses in order for you all to, um, make a judicial committee. Is that
Um,
right?
I'm afraid I'm not sure exactly. Let me close this door. Hang on just a second,
Okay.
please.
Mm-hmm.
Let me answer it in the best way that I can because you're talking about a number of different scenarios. Basically, the Bible sets out guidelines that if someone made an accusation against someone else and it was not proven, that you would need a second witness. If someone had a serious issue and came to the brothers and it was a serious problem, that doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist because there wasn't a second person to see it. So if there was a serious issue, they would take it very seriously and deal with it in that manner. I saw that.
Well, no. What they said in the broadcast is that they will never change that rule. That there has to be a second witness in order for them to make any type of judicial committee and to possibly disfellowship that person. There has to be two witnesses, correct?
Correct, and it's because if the Holy Spirit is involved in it, that will come out sooner or later.
Okay,
The,
but what if it doesn't come out sooner or later?
then you'd have to think that the Holy Spirit's not acting.
So you think that the Holy Spirit is going to protect another child that's been abused? Like, say, for instance, it's child sex abuse. There's never two witnesses when there's been a child
No,
that's been sexually
you're
abused.
no, you're absolutely right, um,
Do you
ma'am. I
do you personally feel like that's a really smart decision the way that that's held? I mean, like, think for yourself. Is that really the best way to handle things?
When you're talking about a judicial decision to have somebody removed from the congregation, it takes two witnesses. If someone comes and says they've been abused, whether it's a husband and wife, or it's a wife been abused, or it's a child been abused, the brothers will take every action they can to protect that person. But to say that we're removing you from the congregation, I'm not sure exactly how that works. I
Do
am
do
not an
you
elder
do you call
myself.
do they call the police?
Absolutely.
Are you sure about that?
Ma'am, I'm not here to argue with you. I'm in the
No,
middle of a
I just
meeting.
want
I'm
you to
trying.
think about this. I mean, I
Listen. I've been doing this for 60 some years. I don't need to have you tell me what I need to be thinking about. If you want to argue with
you
somebody, find somebody that's not going
there
to,
are children being abused in your organization. There is a database held by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society that they're being fined $4,000 a day for them to release this information. They've been sanctioned by the San Diego court. The San Diego Supreme Court has sanctioned your organization $4,000 a day until they release that list of perpetrators that of children that had been abused, sexually abused. 20,000 in the United States.
um,
That's a big deal.
it
These
is a
courts
big
are put
deal.
in place for a reason and to protect children. And then I found out that that your organization directs its elders to not call the police but to call the legal department.
I don't know where you get
These
your
are
information. If you
it
want
is
to
it
listen,
is
ma'am,
Google it. It's San
if you'll
Diego
just
court.
if you'll just take a deep breath, I'll get an elder back here. He can answer your
That
questions.
would be great.
You have a very legitimate, questions here. I don't know the answers,
Okay.
but I can
I
assure
just
you,
urge you, just as a human being, to like research
ma'am, I
this and
don't know
really
where you
think. about this.
Ma'am, I have researched it for 60 years. I
Have
doubt
you
it in your 60
researched the
years, folks.
abuse in the organization? Because I doubt it, because I think, any human being that has any type of heart, and especially, like with the love for Jehovah, that you would really consider and think about this and really research what's going on that you're not made public to in the organization. And this is a law, and this is like there's Candace Conti was just awarded $20 million because the elders of her congregation did not protect these children. They didn't protect her. Where does that $20 million come from? Doesn't that come from your contributions? Does that?
Ma'am, let me get somebody to answer your questions. You have a very legitimate question. I don't know
I
the answer to
appreciate
that.
you for
There is,
acknowledging that, and I would love to
there
talk
is,
to an elder there.
there is no organization on earth who doesn't have men who are predators. There is not an
I
organization on
understand
earth.
that, but it's just a
And
matter of how
Jehovah's
it's
Witnesses
held. I
don't
mean,
bleed.
yeah, I understand that. I totally agree with you. Every organization is going to have, people like that. But it's a matter of when does the organization take the proper responsibility to protect these children? That's what the problem is that the children are not being protected
Okay,
in these
let me
instances.
have you address somebody that
Okay.
can answer your question, okay?
Thank you so much. My heart is racing. Whew. Thank you, JW Broadcast. While I light up my cigarette that I got disfellowship for.
Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
I have a question for you. I watched the November 2017 broadcast on the JW broadcast,
Uh-huh.
and it at the end of that broadcast, the governing well, the gentleman, I can't remember his name, he mentioned something that where the elders have to have two witnesses.
Hmm.
And I imagine this is for like to an alleged.
So here, let me back up a little bit.
Mhm.
So, first of all, who are you, and what Kingdom Hall do you attend?
Excuse me. Does
Why are you calling the Kingdom Hall? Where do you attend at?
I don't attend to a Kingdom Hall. I have family that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and after watching this broadcast, I'm just concerned. I've studied and I've considered uh, studying and going to a Kingdom Hall, but I haven't, made that commitment yet. And I do follow along on jw.org, and I watch the broadcasts and stuff, and I pretty much feel like what you all have is the truth. But I'm just kind of hanging on the fence.
Okay.
And well, so when I watched this broadcast, November 2017, it brought up a lot of questions to me. It said something about how the elders, in order to have a judicial committee, that there has to be two witnesses involved, or two witnesses to an alleged, crime or, disfellowshipping offense. And
Hmm.
my question is what happens when there's a child involved? What if it's a child that's been sexually abused? I mean, I'm sure you can acknowledge that in every, organization, every religion, there's just bad people out there, and that stuff
Hmm.
happens. But what happens when there's a child involved and they're telling you that they're being molested or sexually abused, or if they had been raped or something like that? And, in instances like that, there's usually not two witnesses. What
Yeah.
happens in that case?
Well, every situation is different, and I can tell you that that is the standard. But I will also tell you that the branch also takes it very seriously. And you have a case of abuse like that, it is the responsibility of the elder to report that to Child Protection Services.
Do they always
So it
do
is.
that?
Yes. Yeah, we
Well,
don't sweep anything under the rug.
Well, here's the thing. Once I watched that broadcast, it mentioned apostates, okay? And I
Yeah.
don't want to scare you, but it made me think, and I wanted to see what is it that they're arguing about? What is their problem? You
Yeah.
know, and then what I was researching was that there were several cases. I mean, like in California, the
Well, this is where you get into a problem. Is you're doing both. You're listening to apostates, and then you're also listening to the brotherhood or to the
what's wrong
organization.
with listening to apostates? Why are they
Because they're
apostates?
apostates.
What
Because
what is an
they're
apostate? I don't even understand what an apostate is.
well, you know what would be better to do would be to talk to you in the person. Number one, we're in the middle of a meeting now.
Well,
Um,
I'm really concerned now because I found out, like in San Diego, there's a court case going on where the Watchtower is being sanctioned $4,000 a day because they're
mhm.
failing to release this database of pedophiles that they have in their organization that had not been
Okay.
reported.
Well, I am not going to discuss. Well, number one is I'm not familiar with it. I don't listen to anything to do with apostates. Number one, two, I'm not
You're
going to
not
discuss
interested
anything.
in like looking up and seeing what's
I
going
am not.
on?
Absolutely not.
Why? I don't
So
understand. There's
I'll tell
children involved. And that's
well,
because of the
I,
policies of your organization, and you're not concerned about that?
okay, what you're wanting to do here is to argue.
No, I
So
want you to think.
no, no.
I'd like for you to think because there's
What I'm
children
going to do,
involved. There's
ma'am,
people being
listen,
hurt by this.
listen to me. Listen to me.
What?
Now, number one, you're either an apostate yourself or you don't want to follow the information, and I'm simply not going to argue it. So
No,
what I'm
it's a
going to
court
do is
case. I'm just
I am
what.
going to conclude. I'm going to conclude this discussion, and if you would like someone to call on you, you can go on jw.org,
Don't you
and you can
care about
file
the
out.
children? What about these women and children that are being abused? Oh my God. I am so upset right now. Why don't they care? Why don't they care? How can they be so blind? This cult is so dangerous. It is so wrong what they're doing, and they can't even see it. I just can't understand what is wrong. And we have got to stop this. But you know, he may not listen to me, but I tell you one thing, there's one thing I know for sure, is that he cannot unhear anything I just said to him. And I just hope, for the sake of these children, that maybe he will take that into consideration and listen and research that. Maybe if enough people call, maybe they'll respond to Google it. We've got to help these poor kids. Oh, and these poor victims. I'm sorry, that just really struck a chord with me. Please, call a Kingdom Hall today. Just call a Kingdom Hall.